Carmen, I want to start with these new developments about the Scorpion unit. What do you make of the department's move to disband them?
Well, considering all that we've seen, it makes sense to me that they would get rid of that unit at this point. There still should be a very thorough investigation of all arrests, detentions, uses of force, complaints, and everything else that occurred within the unit. But considering what we saw happened with 5 members of that unit and their blatant disregard for policy and disregard for human life, for that matter, it makes sense to me why they would disband the unit at this time.
Deon, we've seen protests across this country today. We've seen more protests in Memphis. What are you seeing? What are you hearing from members of this community?
Yeah, they just finished protesting about an hour ago, and I was with them. They were at one of the police stations downtown off of Main Street. And they were, it's kind of twofold. They want action, they want accountability, but on the other side, I talked to one of the organizers, and they said that they were at least happy that one of their demands was being met, which was actually getting rid of the Scorpion unit, but they don't want it to stop there. They also want other task forces to be overhauled, such as the gang task force and other task forces that the police department has. But so far, they said it's a great first step, but they said they're not going to stop. They're going to keep with the protests, and they're going to continue to clog interstates such as Interstate I-55, which is what they did last night, until they get all of their demands met.
Right. I mean, Rashad, we've had this conversation over and over again. There's accountability and then there's reform. In a new column for the New York Times, Perry Bacon Jr. writes, quote, "The 5 officers were all black, as was Nichols, as is Memphis's police chief. That doesn't make the situation less bad or unrelated to racism. The problem, as Black Lives Matter activists have been saying for a decade, isn't that individual officers hate black people or other minorities. It's that America's police departments deploy and train their officers to view everyday citizens as either threats to the officer's safety or disruptions to an orderly society, resulting in altercations escalating needlessly into killings." Rashad, your thoughts?
Yeah, and to take it a little bit further, we then have a system that rewards, allows, and doesn't punish folks for it. And so it's not just that the system sort of creates it, it's that it actually incentivizes it. And the problem with, some of these choices, stopping at some of these choices of just firing. So yes, we fire. Yes, we deal with getting rid of the Scorpion unit. That was part of the demands of local organizers and the demands of Color of Change and others. But we also need to deal with the fact that the infrastructure created the Scorpion unit in the first place and allowed it to act this way. And so just like when we ban chokeholds, with policing is about control. If the incentive structure continues to allow this to happen over and over again, they will just find another way. They will just find another sort of piece of infrastructure to carry this out. And so unless there's a deeper systemic overhaul, we're going to continue to sort of move things around. Racism is like water pouring over a floor with holes in it. It will always find the cracks. So unless we change the actual floor and push up the ceiling, we will continue to get the same results over and over again.
And Rashad, I'm going to come back to you on this question of what an alternative would look like. But first, Alana, I want to bring you in because you have the DOJ now launching a civil rights probe. Your sense of the significance of a federal investigation into the actions of these now fired Memphis officers?
A civil rights investigation is the exact right approach. And I think what we need to talk about in terms of systemic change is that we need to talk about the passage of the George Floyd Justice and Policing Act, which would give the federal government authority to issue subpoenas to any jurisdiction to commence a pattern or practice investigation, which would be even wider than just a plain vanilla civil rights investigation, which would investigate this particular Scorpion unit, but could go much further beyond this particular unit to the entire department and could investigate it top to bottom. We also need to be able to have a federal registry of disciplinary conduct and complaint. What we know about divisions of police departments like this is that they are notorious for this kind of violence and heinous conduct, and they're also notorious for hiding the evidence and not maintaining proper records. And unless we have a registry of the officers that have committed this type of conduct, and that is something that can be actually maintained, we won't see any kind of substantive reform. And finally, we've spoken about this many times on the show before, but qualified immunity is a hurdle that has to be addressed to allow plaintiffs to be able to hold police officers accountable. And if we don't address qualified immunity, and we could even do so in the narrow context of police encounters, of course, qualified immunity relates to all government officials, but we know qualified immunity is not needed in the context of individual civilians dealing with police. And the final thing I'll say is that you asked the question at the top of the story, why did this begin with a traffic stop? Traffic stops are the most common interaction that police have with people. In the last 5 years alone, 400 individuals have been killed by police in traffic stops alone. These individuals were unarmed, did not have weapons, and this is because police officers are trained on a steady diet that vehicle stops are the most dangerous encounters they can make. They're also proactively patrolling Black and brown communities and over-policing those communities. And they are taught that when they encounter folks that they should be suspicious of, like a Tyree Nichols, a Black man, or a person who is perhaps sleeping in their car or just doing something suspicious, they go in with a warrior mentality and they go in to hurt and to harm instead of going in to seek and to understand. And when people don't comply, they are dealt with in a situation where the police are really now handling them in terms of being in contempt of cop. So they're going to give you pain compliance to make you comply. This is about structural racism. It's about white supremacy, but it's also about a system of toxic masculinity, patriarchy, and an overall system of oppression that unless everything changes about policing, nothing will change.